I really do kind of live and breathe around engagement and community and how you can drive value in such a way where you can capture money. When I started to realize that and see the space as like very much just like discount driven and trying to like, why won't this work? Well, if you put garbage in, you get garbage out, right? We've all heard that story before. So once I started to like kind of get that and see that within the subscription space, there's not a ton of thought leadership, there's not a ton of education. And that's how I've grown and advanced my career, is by following other people and practicing what experts are doing in the space. That's one of the reasons why I became the subscription doc and launched Subscription Prescription as a brand with my partner, to try to do more to educate and empower people in that.
There's so many nuggets in that. Like, I think people need to understand, like, if you can sit back and look at the market, realize what's happening, and if there are gurus in the space, this can shortcut you a ton. But what I think too in this entrepreneur space, what's so interesting is,
welcome to ClickFunnels Radio, the podcast that brings you the latest strategies, insights, and success stories from online marketers just like you who utilize funnels to grow their business. Our mission is simple: to help you unleash the true potential of your online business by harnessing the power of funnels. Join us every week as we bring you exclusive interviews and thought-provoking discussions that will revolutionize the way you approach online marketing. Here are your hosts, Chris Cameron and Ben Harris.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another amazing episode of ClickFunnels Radio. And we have somebody who we're really excited to introduce you today, that if you or anyone who's listening that is looking to increase your subscription revenue or start a subscription, which, by the way, you need to be doing, this is going to be something you're going to listen to every single second, because other than Russell Brunson, there's not too many people living and breathing that are teaching the type of content that this guy is. And it's going to be something that's, quite frankly, is probably going to blow you away, myself included. But before we get over to him, we've got to introduce Chris Cameron in the house. Chris, what's up, man?
you don't got to introduce me. I'm excited to just get into this right now. Like, with everything we're doing, this is such a cool thing. Like, people have been following us. We'll get into this. Our whole linchpin model, like, goes so much into what this guy's doing. So let's introduce him.
We can bring on at subscription doc, Matthew Holman. Matthew, welcome. How are you today?
Great, guys. I'm great. With that, an intro like that, I mean, how could I not be smiling and happy and feeling on top of the world?
That's awesome. And yeah, thank you for coming on. And we don't take your time lightly. I promise we won't waste it. We'll be entertaining, maybe a joke or two, but we'd love to dive in, man, and even kind of hear about your journey. Just pretend we've never met before. Kind of catch us up. What's gotten you to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've had a very interesting journey, which, maybe at another time we need to go into. We were joking offline about my misadventures in college. We should maybe talk about that at some point. But I would say what makes me kind of a little bit different, a little bit unique from a business or career perspective is I've been on the SaaS side, right? Trying to build up MRR and selling SaaS service. I've grown and built my own community here in Utah that does events. We have a very, very active Slack channel. And I'm also a content creator, and my day job is consulting with brands on building up recurring revenue programs, whether that's memberships, subscriptions, all types of things there. So I really do kind of live and breathe around engagement and community and how you can drive value in such a way where you can capture money from them on a regular, consistent basis. So yeah, like quite a few different things going on in projects and what I've worked on the last 6-7 years. But yeah, definitely as an adult, trying to find my niche where I'm happiest and where I can drive the most value.
What took you to subscriptions? Like, did you start as like a regular entrepreneur?
Yeah. I was running marketing for a SaaS startup called eHub here in Utah, a shipping technology company, and I actually was dating my now wife there, and the boss's sister, the founder's sister, which was mixed bag, right? Tricky. So partially to both, pursue that relationship, but also partially to like want to go full blown entrepreneur and join a subscription app or a subscription platform called QPilot as a co-founder to lead marketing. And so when I first met the founder, it was just kind of one of those random LinkedIn posts, anybody interested in, joining a startup, immediately saw tons of overlap between shipping and subscriptions and lots of things in there. And then the more and more I worked on it, again, started as a SaaS guy trying to market and peddle a SaaS product. But the more and more I worked with our brands to try to figure out, like, why isn't this working? Because I'll just say a very, very quick example. The common practice in a lot of like D2C subscription spaces is, month 3, month 4, we're going to throw a discount at you to try to increase retention. And that's really, really common. But
like a
but
bulk
I've
discount or just like a month-to-month discount?
Yeah, like month to month, we'll give you 10% off. So just as a perk, because people are worried when they see the renewal, or if you're shipping something, a physical good subscription, you get that in the mail and you're like, oh, I need to cancel this. So they're like, hey, we're going to give you 10% off or 20% off this month. And the problem, though, is that if you're giving somebody a discount that doesn't value the service and isn't using the service or the product, what is a discount going to get you? And so sometimes you have to take a step back and like look at the type of people that are coming in the funnel and who's buying and why, and then giving them more of what they need. And sometimes that's a discount, but sometimes that might be a service or a different like some other value prop. And so when I started to realize that and see the space as like very much just like discount driven and trying to like, why won't this work? Well, if you put garbage in, you get garbage out, right? We've all heard that story before. So once I started to like kind of get that and see that within the subscription space, there's not a ton of thought leadership, there's not a ton of education. And that's how I've grown and advanced my career, is by following other people and practicing what experts are doing in the space. That's one of the reasons why I became the subscription doc and launched Subscription Prescription as a brand with my partner, to try to do more to educate and empower people in that.
There's so many nuggets in that. Like, I think people need to understand, like, if you can sit back and look at the market, realize what's happening, and if there are gurus in the space, this can shortcut you a ton. But what I think too in this entrepreneur space, what's so interesting is so many entrepreneurs chase promotion, right? If they have a SaaS, that's one thing, right? But a lot of them are coaches or something like that, but they could have membership sites. And rather than chasing that promotion and next promotion, you have to have, like, we have this whole linchpin model right now that Russell's running. And he always jokes, like David Fry taught him this: if you don't have continuity, you don't have a business. And so this has become such an important thing for all entrepreneurs to like switch their mindset. You have to have something that's going to get you that monthly recurring revenue. If somebody doesn't have an e-com thing that is something that they can use over and over again, or let's say a software, how else can they implement subscription?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few different ways. Like if you think about, I think, like unpacking it, sometimes memberships or subscriptions and memberships get used interchangeably. Let's talk about like the different versions could be access, right? So like say you have content or you have some kind of exclusivity element, and the only way to get it is by subscribing to it. So like if you had a really high quality YouTube channel that's public, so you might, if you're launching that on Circle or hosting it on another platform where you're gating access. So that's one way, right? The other way is like talking about having access to something you might need. So for example, like video editing is another great example. It's like, hey, you pay $1,000 a month and you can get up to X hours of video edited every month. It's $1,000 flat. And whether you use up your hours or not, that's up to you, right? So like, that's like a recurring service model. The physical goods ones are pretty easy to understand, right? Like you're getting a pound of pet food every month, or getting protein powder as a supplement.
Subscribe and save or whatever.
Yeah. And then the other thing is thinking about like app usage, or like a tool, right? Like, so the ones I think that a really great example we're thinking through like great subscription experiences is like go and like, if you see an ad for some kind of like sleep app in the future, or like a fitness app, go download it and go through their onboarding process. Pay the $10 or whatever to go see what it's like, because they ask so many questions. They try to identify exactly who you are, what your pain points are, what your goals are. They're trying to do everything they can to understand about you so that they can then surface an experience that speaks to you. So another great example of this is just very simple. Like if you think about bag of protein powder. Now, everybody could use that when we're thinking as entrepreneurs, but no matter how many different people can use it, you have to pick your angle or your wedge for who you're going to be selling to. So am I selling this protein powder to people that are looking for a meal supplement because they're trying to lose weight? Is it for people that are training in weights, trying to gain weight, people that are endurance athletes, they're training for a race or triathlon, or somebody who's just trying to like get ready for hot girl summer? Like whatever those things are, those are very different types of users with very different types of goals and dreams and pain points.
Even though the product is the same.
And many of them might use it differently as well. Like the weight gain guy, he's taking 2 scoops every time. The meal supplement person's only taking it whenever they're trying to make a shake or a protein shake. That could be once or twice a day. It could be once a week. So again, like a lot of the goals with subscriptions is trying to understand who your users are and what they're trying to make happen. What's the dream? What are they trying to accomplish? And can you put in a service or some type of product or whatever that's going to enable that for them, right?
Yeah, the marketing is totally different than across that. You could market to a bunch of different sub niches and funnel them all into that same product.
Yeah, absolutely. Benjamin, I feel like you want to say something, but I can riff on what Chris just said.
No, a couple of things is I guess a quick answer and then a more question we can unpack. Do you see brands, in the CPG market, we can use the protein example again, that are using those different angles for the same product?
Yeah, that's what landing pages are all about. So like the when you're evaluating like a brand, you look at their website, and websites are often like trying to be all things for all people. But then when you look at Daily Harvest is probably a good example, right? So like Daily Harvest is spinning up landing pages for every different type of user that might be looking for meals, whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're busy, whether you're, all those different types of things. They're spinning up landing pages based off of pain points or use cases that they've found starting to work, or they're trying to test new ones. Like the protein powder one's a good example. If you wanted to say started to target nursing mothers, right? So you have a healthy organic protein powder that will be have positive effects for the baby. That's a totally different landing page, but maybe a similar funnel that you're trying to sell to somebody to try to get them ultimately to buy the product.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And even if looking to build landing pages, go to clickfunnels.com, start your 14-day free trial.
Hey, what do you know?
Yeah. So Matthew, you mentioned earlier of creating a great subscription experience. And this may be a loaded question, but I'm curious with your expertise, what makes a great subscription experience?
Yeah, there's usually a couple different things that go into that. I think that maybe taking a quick step back is like any good subscription program needs to be gathering information, like using surveys, onboarding questions, periodic check-ins, things like that. Also, when you're doing cancellations, collecting reasons as well, because if you don't get those insights, you don't know what to change or what to build or what to be better. But whether we're talking product or service, it needs to fit the need or even surpass the need. So usually high quality products and services are going to win out. But even then, it has to have some angle of, you have to be addressing is this a convenience product? Is this being bought because of the price is better? Is it being bought because something about it is unique or special in some way? And so that's typical just general marketing stuff that goes into that. But otherwise, great subscription experiences I think the best ones are control. People are getting what they need on the timeline or frequency or cadence that they need it. So that you don't lose people that are getting frustrated. Like the video editing thing. If that $1,000 package was for 100 hours a month, but I only ever needed 5,
right,
that doesn't work for me. Could I pay $200 to get 5 video hours, right? That kind of thing. So trying to build some kind of either flexibility there. But then I think it really does come down to a great subscription experience is aligning expectation with what you're being delivered. And yes, you can always over deliver. That's fine. When I was younger, I used to think over delivering was the whole big thing. But when you realize actually in real business, sometimes it's actually just about meeting expectations, just doing that really well.
Dang. Yeah.
It's like if somebody comes in thinking that your protein powder is going to help them with weight loss, but it really doesn't help or only helps in certain ways, or there's all these other qualifications, or it needs to be say you have to take it for 6 months to see any effect, but you didn't tell them it was 6 months up front. Those are bad experiences. So you'd want to really align customer expectation with what you're actually delivering and making happen.
I have kind of an interesting question to build off that. You talk about over deliver, and this is maybe a little bit different. If you're talking e-com, Stu McLaren does a whole training on this, which I think is really funny. He talks about tie of the month club. And he's like, what happens when you get month 6 and you realize you're not wearing these ties? Now I got all these ties stacking up. I was over at my niece's house and she's in this bow club. And she's got tons of these bows. She's not wearing all those bows. Right. And then that can be fatigue now for the consumer. Okay, that's enough bows. I got enough for a lifetime. How does somebody who's e-com that specializes in a product like that, how can they meet those expectations without losing somebody or somebody getting overwhelmed because now they got a pile of ties?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The idea is, one, is that an outlier? Is that somebody who just
maybe it is.
They don't wear that many ties or not? But because basically we create an assumption, a hypothesis around this is hey, people need more tie variability in their life. I'll give you a great example because I had this as a guest on my podcast. Wink was a wine club for a long time. Their assumption, their value prop was if you come in we're going to give you this selection for all these different wines so you can try different wines from around the world, kind of thing. But what they found was, and so they'd have 20, 25 wines you could choose from. But as soon as you had one little preference, like I liked red more than white, or I like, like just that little bit of a preference, your selection of 25 went down to like 6. And so then if you're getting like 4 a month, like your second shipment, like what else are they going to send you? Right. So you're running out. And so what they found was they had to then add more SKUs to make, because they found that the subscribers really were interested in discovering new types of wine. And so you have to make that assumption and that value of why somebody's buying match. And so with the tie example, if somebody is like really interested in getting a bunch of ties, there's either a misalignment, like they forget them, or maybe they didn't really need them as much as they did.
Right.
And so that's why I would think it might be an outlier. Or what does the market look like? Are you getting a lot of people that are really interested in that, they need more ties or the bow thing? Because there is an aspirational element to a lot of online purchases. Like weight loss is a great one. Like, yeah, I am trying to lose weight. And then the protein powder sits in the kitchen and it never gets used, right? So those types of people aren't good ideal customers. And so sometimes the mistake with subscriptions is we try to build the program to go after the guy with the 6 ties sitting in his closet. And that is generally the mistake. And that's why I say a lot of times this discount culture happens, is brands often will chase the wrong customer. I'm okay losing, if I have a 1,000 customers that love getting all the tie varieties, and I have 100 of them canceling every month because they're tired of ties. Okay. Do I need to do more ties and more variety? Is that the reason they're getting fatigued? Or are they just really not wearing ties that much? And if they're not wearing ties that much, I want to get information from all the other people that are still on there saying like, hey, we could use more. We could use different lengths. Could you offer suits? Could you offer tie clips? Like,
are you polling them? Are you polling them as you gather?
You absolutely. That's what I'm saying. That's the whole thing I was saying about information gathering is like, you have to be doing that. You have to ask them questions around when you onboard somebody. It's not just like, how are you going to use this product, but like, what are your goals? Like, what made you buy this? Tell me more about you. Like, if you're selling say you're selling a course on investment stuff. Are you 20 years old in college trying to figure out how to become a millionaire? Are you 35? Tired of being in your 9 to 5, totally different investments. Because if you're the 20-year-old just trying to figure that out, like, oh, I could just come up with more and more get rich quick scheme content that they're going to gobble up. The 35-year-old guy, it's like, hey, actually, let's start with talking with a financial planner first to see if you're ready to start investing. And like, we're going to start offering that as a service, right? So those are the ideas you get at the onboarding piece. But then, yes, you need to be regular polling, doing surveys, trying to get feedback from people. And then you're also going to be able, within any like purchase experience, you're going to be able to see a subscription. Like, you can look at people who's been on the longest. Those are the people I'm going to poll. I want to know why they like it, what they get, what more would they would like. They've been buying from me for 12 months.
Every single month.
They're going to tell me that I'm, crazy or not, kind of thing. Versus maybe somebody early on that's canceling. I'd like to find out what quite wasn't right. If they just didn't like it, it didn't work, that's fine. If something was wrong, or maybe they had the wrong assumption, then I need to maybe fix some of my upfront marketing. But yes, that's where the feedback loop is the most critical and often overlooked piece of a great subscription piece, because 1, it helps you fix problems. 2, it helps you launch new products. And the final thing is it helps you improve retention overall, because you're getting feedback from what's working, what's not.
Do you get a lot of participation in those type of feedbacks? Is there a certain way that you do this? I mean, it's all marketing, right? If you have somebody who's engaged, yes, those people that are paying every single month, they'll probably be like, yeah, I have some input for you. But what's that like return like? Do people?
Yeah, it's fairly low. Like it's hard to survey customers because but it's you have to be maybe a little more creative or take your shot. Like 1 question maybe you send out, or a 2-question survey or something like that. Yes, if you're targeting,
they throw it out, do you then maybe provide a discount?
You can do that, yes, as well. Like, hey, we're trying to you can also gamify it a little bit. Like, hey, we're working on some new products. Can you take 2 minutes to give us feedback on things that we could do more for you, right? And so that's potentially going to get more opt-in by people who are interested in like, oh yeah, like, and if you can be really specific, like, hey, we're going to start we're looking at considering financial planning services. Could you spend a few minutes to answer that question? So there's a lot of different ways you can test that to try to get it to make it work. But yeah, the gains aren't necessarily huge. You're not going to get 60, 70% response rates, but even getting like 10 or 20% can be pretty significant. And then the other thing is just like spending some time calling or talking or holding events, like, you know, if you can meet with people in person or get feedback from them one-on-one, that's massive.
That's a great call out. So Matthew, I think CEO or founder, I forget what his job title was, but I think his name is Patrick Campbell too, was with Profitwell. And I was listening to some content that he had said, and I'm gonna just paraphrase this, but he said that when people were canceling after surveying thousands of cancellation funnels, one of the key questions they would ask somebody when they wanted to leave their platform or subscription was what they liked the most about it. So it sort of put the canceling consumer in a different frame of mind of like, you know what, I actually really like the content, and it gave them more ammo to downsell them on a different plan or something like that. Do you have like a golden nugget question or something you do to increase retention that's like that?
I would say that my golden nugget maybe isn't quite as golden as Patrick.
Yeah, that one's like ninja hack.
That's just pretty awesome. I would say, and I'm being a little bit, maybe downplaying my own ability there, but I would say the thing that I get really, really common is either people have too much product on physical subscriptions or they're not using it, right? Those are the two really common ones. Like, hey, I don't use this anymore. I don't need this anymore. And for me, it's always about trying to figure out a better way to ask that question, whether I'm doing that in the flow to ask more in depth about that, or I'm trying to put in taking that question out and using some of my own, what I've been getting feedback from. So a good example might be like, hey, if you're not using this product anymore, you know, how often were you using it before you weren't using it anymore? Like, you know, what changed for you that didn't make sense anymore? Like, I want to dive more into that, because if I'm finding people that aren't using the product because, you know, they got immediate impact from it and no longer need it, okay, maybe I could just try to figure out how to sell more to them. But if they didn't use it and that's why they never used it, like, that's an onboarding issue for me. And so that's what I try to like get deeper in there when we're looking at cancellation flows, is like really getting into the nitty gritty of like, why did this not happen for you? Because like a common one's price. People are complaining about price being too high. And oftentimes that's a question of like evaluating how you're demonstrating value, right? Maybe you're not pointing out that the cost of these services are 2x somewhere else, right? And you're not reminding somebody that over and over again. That's like, I like trying to go deeper as you can on the cancellation surveys.
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, asking them, even if they're exiting, right? Like, they'll still, that's a lot of times when they're going to give you that information. I do have a kind of a fun question. I want to know what's the weirdest like subscription, because here's the thing. Okay, pest control, but is it professional services? Like, are dentists or chiropractors or like, you know, even HVAC guys? Like, what's the most creative or weirdest subscription model that you've seen that works?
Well, there is a company in Utah called Pesty that does pest control subscriptions.
Okay.
It's actually pretty cool. I'll give you that one. The one that I really didn't like is when I think it was BMW that was you had to subscribe to get access to the seat warmers.
That's what it was. Yes.
I really didn't like that. I thought that was a horrible mismanagement of like, BMW could do so many other things to like create a membership or subscription model, like do a virtual drive with like a race car driver or something like that. You know what I mean? I would say one of the funniest ones was a guinea pig subscription box. So like people that have guinea pigs for pets, and every month they're getting like toys and treats and stuff for their guinea pig.
I was gonna say, are they getting a new guinea pig every month? Because that
but that one was like, but that was a great example of like a niche that actually was doing pretty well, you know, because like, if you have a guinea pig, like there aren't that many guinea pigs like services out there. I'm trying to think of like some other ones. I think of some of like the most creative ones. There's quite a bit. I mean, obviously everybody knows Costco and Amazon.
Sure. What about like people that come to the house? I mean, Pesty is a good example of this, but like some people think, okay, well, I only need my, you know, roof done. You know, like we'll talk to roofers all the time, and we're telling them, or just, you know, anybody who has this professional service business, they'll be like, well, I don't know how to do a subscription. And there's got to be ways to do all of it.
There's a company in Park City, and I'm spacing on their name, but they were selling a subscription to have access to professional services that you could get faster and at a discount. So like if you needed like a handyman or a plumber or something like that, you would just use their platform. You would get faster response times than an average customer, and then you'd get, say, like 20% off any of the people in their network. So that was a good way. I mean, I get asked. I'll reframe your question just a little bit. I get asked a lot about like how, if I'm not in a what would normally be construed as a typical subscription or membership model. How do I create a subscription or membership? And so the example I like to use for that is like, is if you're normally getting people that are buying something, or they're people that are close to buying from you, but don't quite pull the trigger, is there a fractional part of your service or your product that you could sell and have access to? So, we can use video editing as a good example. Like, let's say you normally sell this really big video editing process. It's really expensive. Say it's 10 grand a month is the typical customers you go after, but you get a lot of people saying like, hey, I really just need 5 hours a week editing my podcast and to get it ready to post. Like, could you do that? Like, okay, once you start modeling out that process, we could do that profitably if we offered it like $150 or something. And here's the limits and restrictions. Legal services. I mean, legal, they love charging for hours. But if you just want to have access, so it's like trying to understand like the problems with that. Like, let's say if normally in the legal world, you can't just flip open a phone book to call a lawyer to ask them a quick question. Or you're in a space where a lot of people need just one quick legal question answered like every couple of days or once or twice a month kind of thing. Okay, maybe as a lawyer, I could say, hey, we have this little membership. It's $30 a month, and you can ask 3 questions. We have a chat bot that you can use it through. We respond in 10 minutes. So it's like trying to think through, like maybe there's some like misalignment with what people are getting, or if it's access, information. You do have to just try to kind of take a step back of like trying to understand where you can offer value. And maybe there's like something that's a little bit different that you could offer as value to people at a reduced rate or on a recurring rate. But I generally like to think of things as like access, convenience, something like that. You know, like the idea of one I saw recently more is Target just launched this, and I'm forgetting the name of the app, but it's like a delivery app. Right. So like Walmart does their own service, right? So, but Target and some of these other retailers are starting to use either Instacart or something like that, where, hey, you can subscribe for $30 a month and we waive delivery fees for you. Right. And so every time you're in checkout, you see the delivery fee cost. You can choose in your mind to think, am I doing this enough where I want to subscribe to this to get that for free or not? Like that happens all the time. So that's kind of like the mentality is like, okay, you can just pay for this, or if you do this enough where you think the math works, we can just charge you a subscription and then you can get access to it.
Yeah, this is genius stuff, man. Like,
I know, right?
I feel like the whole world is kind of going this way a little bit, but it's just rethinking how this is done, right? People pay insurance, right? Because then they're going to have a big thing. I think there's a lot of opportunity for people who haven't considered, business owners, they haven't considered a subscription model. I think exactly what you're saying is going to be super helpful to those who are listening.
Is there an industry out there that you would not suggest pivoting to any kind of subscription offer?
Funeral services.
Yeah, maybe.
No, I mean, they're getting disrupted right now by that. What's the name of that company that there's a Utah startup that's actually disrupting the funeral home, trying to do cremations on demand. But yeah, that's probably not a good one.
How about restaurants? Is that even, I guess Panera has like their coffee deal or whatever, but
well, restaurants, like if you're having like access to stuff, like there's a little local coffee shop in Salt Lake that I stopped in the other day, and they're offering like a subscription to coffee, and you got X number, like you could get a free cup of coffee every day if you paid them like $100 a month or whatever.
Man,
and
Swig
so
needs to offer some type of retainer. They would make millions and millions and millions on that.
Yeah.
For those who don't know Swig, it's the alternative to coffee shops here in Utah.
But it does raise a good question. Like the example I like to use a lot is like movie theaters. So movie theaters have loyalty and they have membership, right? So loyalty is just I earn points because whatever. And I would question whether that's really makes sense, because loyalty is not inspiring me. Like when you go to buy popcorn and they ask you for your phone number and they're like, hey, would you like $5 off? You've earned $5 off. I'm like, yeah, I'm not saving those up for anything, but I'm also not going to see another movie because I have $5 in popcorn credit. Right. So,
yeah.
So questions, why does that loyalty point, that program work? Now, memberships one, this is an interesting example. It's like, okay, I get a free movie. I pay you $10 a month. I get a free movie ticket every month that's worth $10, and I get an extra 20% off concessions and some, as maybe there's another perk or two, like I get 2x loyalty points when I buy popcorn or something. Okay, well, from the value standpoint, is the movie theater making more money off of that? Well, they're basically giving you a free ticket for $10. So maybe because they're doing a little predictable, but if the system lets you keep your tickets till infinity, then it's, maybe they're getting a little bit more predictable revenue, but not much. And they're also then giving away more concessions on the concession side. So why do they do it? Well, they do it because there's a certain subsection of moviegoers that are much more engaged with the movie brand because of this, right? They buy all their tickets through the app. They share movie tickets or movie preferences through the app. They're tracking like what they have available. So now that app has this stickiness that gives additional like secondary and tertiary values to the movie theater company because they get more information from users. They know who you are instead of you just being an anonymous or just knowing you because of the credit card you use to buy things. So there's sometimes a lot of ancillary benefits to offering that. And then going one step further is if you have 1,000 customers and say that you do have a subscription model in place, do you have an extra level of service you could offer for 100 of them? Like out of that 1,000, there's going to be at least 10 to 20%.
Maybe it's that mega tub or the refill things they're doing because now they're going to come to Larry H. Miller over something else because they can get a $3 popcorn in their plastic bucket.
So it's like now, hey, if I offer cash back whenever you buy with us, like now you're going to be more incentivized to buy more. Or out of those people, like anybody doing a service, we all know this. You have you have all these customers, and some people come occasionally, some people come all the time. Well, what can you do for the people that come all the time that you can do more for? Is it a more product? Is it a discount to get them to buy more? Like thinking through like how you can service or engage with your best customers, that should be the ideal of any subscription or membership offering.
I have just a funny story about this. It made me think about it. So, they'll give you those tub popcorn, they'll give you these refills. And I had a mug that was just haggard. And I ended up going up to this other Fat Cats movie theater. Here's what was genius. These guys are at war with the membership thing. And I said, oh, crud, I brought the wrong mug. And he goes, no problem. We'll do it for you. He says, just hand me that one. He took it, threw it in the garbage and handed me a new one. And now I'm on them. Like, it's just crazy, man. Like,
that's great.
All these different fun things you can do, right? It's actually genius because you get that brand loyalty and reason to come back. And I thought it was great customer service. And then when I went home, I was like, wait a minute, now I can't go to Larry H. Miller and
that guy got me.
Exactly, right? Like, I mean, there's so much power in this stuff and psychology for the consumer that people don't realize that you could hack into. It's fun.
Yeah.
Matthew, are you familiar with Russell Brunson's value ladder concept?
No.
Well, I can explain it real quick. It's essentially just identifying, people who are of interest, turning them into buyers, and then basically hyperactive buyers, right? You get them in with the low ticket, and then they ascend up your value ladder to maybe a subscription, then a high ticket coaching model. And you can see, we can break it down at a later date, but ClickFunnels, we have a full value ladder of all of our products and offerings. And in our perfect world, a subscription is never offered to a cold customer, right? Even if it's $5 a month, just the per month makes it way harder to sell. How do you advise your clients to grow their subscription? Do you suggest that they congregate a pool of buyers, of action takers rather, or
do they have a locked leader?
Yeah, point of purchase, checkout type deal. What's your ideal scenario?
Yeah, so there's two, like within the D2C, like CPG, the physical goods space, there's two kind of schools of thought that are warring. One is you sell the one time as much as you can, and you use email marketing to hit them as hard as possible to get them to opt into the subscription, because that's going to be better off for you. And then there's another school of thought, which is why don't you lead with the subscription? Because the recurring revenue. So like we can talk a little bit about the math, but it's like, hey, if I'm getting like 10% of website visitors to opt into a one-time purchase, but I get 5% of website visitors to opt into a subscription, I can very easily see like my conversion rates from the one time to subscription versus just subscription initially, and make a decision about whether I should just sell with that. I think that it comes down to like most brands only have like one product, so they're not following like a step thing. Like, so like for me with subscription prescription, it's like I'm trying to get you to pay for a download $5. That's like what I'm working on. And then I'm trying to upsell you into like, subscribing to more content or buying a course, and then like masterclass. Like that's that same idea of like, I don't want to try to sell a masterclass to somebody who doesn't think I know what I'm talking about or doesn't see that much value or whatever, right? That makes sense. So I think like understanding that user journey, how people are discovering you. A subscription box company, I know BattleBox, they said they have like 40% of their customers buy kind of like almost within a day or two of being introduced to the brand, but 60% of them, it's almost like a year of they discover top of funnel, they do research, they watch ads, stuff like that. And so there's like this really big gap. So they try to service both. They create content for the year-long considerers, and they do on-site tests and offers for the people that are kind of getting there kind of quick, right? So I would say like it just depends on trying to figure out like, do you think you can, I think you should try if you don't have a ton of other products to try to introduce people to, you should try leading with the subscription first, because if you're getting it nailed, like you understand the pain point or the value, like again, let's use that protein powder. If I know that I've got a system for anybody who's trying to use protein powder for weight loss, I'm going to try to get you to subscribe right now, because I'm trying to sell the aspirational, like 6-month, 12-month journey. And that's where I think subscription,
the
like
result.
sometimes, yes, you're not buying because of the product, you're buying because of the result. And if I think I'm selling the right result, I'm going to try to get you to commit right away. And so sometimes you'll see people that are cold customers that are subscribing to like a prepaid subscription for a year, not just like, I'm going to start getting a monthly thing.
They may be harder.
I'm going to prepay for 12 months. Now, some people do that, but most of the time it's like, hey, you're on there for a couple of months and then you hit them with an offer. By the way, if you prepay for the next 6 months, the next 12 months, we're going to give you like 10 or 20% off. You're already using it. You already love it. Just makes sense, right? So there's two different ways to like approach that, but you can without getting, I always like to caution people I consult with, like, don't get too complicated because it's hard to manage all the complications. But if you do start to identify there's two types of users, there's like 10% of the people that come to the page, just they gobble it up, they're willing to pay for it. What's the ideal experience for the customers? What's the ideal experience for my business? And where can I find like the middle ground there?
This is genius. I hadn't even considered, I guess, too much that psychology of, if somebody's gonna, be a golfer, they might want to subscribe right when they're starting to, golf balls every month, because they're going to be the biggest golfer ever, where, 3-4 months into it, they're like, I'm not going as much as I want or anything. There might be, a space for that. I hadn't even considered that. Well, Matthew, we could talk about this forever. But I'm curious, if people wanted to go find out more about you, they wanted to check you out, learn more, what's the best place for them to go? I know you mentioned you had a newsletter.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to thesubscriptiondoc.com, that's my website. You can find access to my newsletter, podcast, consulting stuff. I'd also say just look me up on LinkedIn, Matthew Holman, and subscription, and you'll find me, because there's not too many subscription people on there.
These are gold nuggets for anybody who has any type of business, whether they have a product or you have a service. You've got to consider the subscription model. It is massive.
Absolutely.
I can't wait for these cuts. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Matthew. You've been great.
All right, thanks, guys.
See ya.